What's up, you guys? The Curious Owl here, and today I am doing the spring cleaning book tag. We are now in the thick of spring. It is May. It is actually getting closer to summer as days go on. This was a tag created by Book Syrup, and without further ado, let's get into the questions. Question 1 is the struggle of getting started, a book or book series that you have struggled to begin because of its size. The first series that comes to mind, and I actually have started it, but it's more of like I'm a little worried to continue it because it is a very vast series, and the first book was pretty intimidating when I had first read it, when I had listened to it on audiobook, is the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Now, I do like Stephen King's writing. Some of his books are kind of hit or miss with me, but I had liked the first book within that series, The Gunslinger. It was like, I think, a 3-star for me, if I remember correctly. I had started it in the fall, and it was okay, but the thing was there was a lot going on, and there's a lot of different elements at play. There's like Western themes, there's sci-fi themes, there's all kinds of different things going on within the story that make it hard for me to understand what's going on. And then also there are elements of it that play into Stephen King's other works like Hearts in Atlantis, and I think even Insomnia, which I had tried to read in the summer of 2018 and DNF'd because I wasn't understanding anything of what was going on, but had been told that a lot of the elements that are involved with that story deal with the Dark Tower series, and I'm gonna have to like reread The Gunslinger before I can even get to the next book because I don't remember much of what happened in The Gunslinger except that at least one character died. That's about it. Question 2 is cleaning out the closet, a book and or book series you want to unhaul. As of right now, I don't have any series or books that I'm going to be unhauling because I think I just recently did an unhaul not too long ago. I did it like maybe about a couple months ago, and everything that I have on my shelves now I still do like or have not read as of yet to say that I would like to unhaul them. Question 3 is opening windows and letting fresh air in, a book that was refreshing. In April, I will say I had read a lot of romance novels, a lot of adult contemporaries that focus on romance, and what was really weird for me is that I'm not usually a rom-com person. I hate rom-coms with a passion, but I think the first book that really kind of turned me around a little bit with that was actually Pretending in Paradise by M. Ulrich. This is a dislike to love trope and the fake relationship trope kind of rolled into one because it's a story focusing on two women who work together. One is a travel writer and the other is kind of a PR individual. And the travel writer gets herself into some trouble, and the PR lady has to basically go with her to this resort in order to make sure that she doesn't do anything else stupid because she's put the company at risk. But the thing is that this resort, another reason she has to go there is because it's a couples only resort. So they have to act as a couple in order to get really the full experience of the resort and even be allowed to be there. So the whole story is them really getting to know each other and understanding each other while they don't necessarily like each other at first. For me, what was really weird about it was that this is very much a rom-com story. This is basically The Proposal with Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock, but with two women, and I loved The Proposal. Don't get me wrong, it's one of my favorite movies, but I'm not a rom-com person. I don't like the idea of rom-coms because they're very unrealistic half the time. But I felt like with The Proposal and with Pretending in Paradise that they both kind of had a more realistic sense to them because it did make more sense for these women that as they got to know each other, and for Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock's characters, as they got to know each other better, that they did start to like each other at least and had wanted to see where the relationship had gone. It was a little unrealistic in the sense that they kind of almost had an insta-love thing, but I kind of disregarded it because I was too enraptured with the story. So it was kind of refreshing to see this romance story that kind of reminded me of a rom-com movie that I actually kind of liked, that it was not overtly making me sick to read. So I guess that's the last book I can think of that was considered refreshing for me. Question 4 is washing out sheet stains, a book you wish you could rewrite a certain scene in. I would like to rewrite the last 2 books within the Beautiful Creatures world by Cameron Garcia and Margaret Stohl because the last 2 books that focus with Lincoln Ridley honestly could have been one book. Like they were basically a spin-off, a duology. And I felt like it could have just been a spin-off standalone because everything that happened in both of those books was way too rushed for me, and honestly felt like it could have just been one big thing because the end of the first book in the duology and the beginning of the second book kind of happen within the same like moment. Like basically there's this big accident that happens, and the beginning of the second book is like immediately after the accident happens. So it would have made more sense for me to have those two books together, considering that the second book is really tying a lot of things up from the first one, and I just didn't like the idea of there being two books when it could have easily just been a bit of a longer first book. Question 5 is throwing unnecessary knickknacks, a book in a series that you didn't feel was necessary. I guess the only thing I can say is going back to the last question with the duology spinoff in the Beautiful Creatures series, I felt like, you know, having two books was unnecessary and it could have just easily been one. Question 6 is polishing the doorknobs, a book that had a clean finish. The last book that I read that I would say had a very clean finish was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. I re-listened to the audiobook for like the second time since the fall of 2017 for the House Cupathon, as it was our required reading for April, and it's just that entire ending of the story I felt is always so satisfying for me. Question 7 is Reaching to Dust the Fan, a book that tried too hard to relay a certain message. The last book I can think of that I felt was just really kind of weird and I didn't even quite understand what the message was supposed to be was Revival by Stephen King. I wouldn't say it was trying too hard to relay a certain message. I just don't think I got the message that was supposed to be in the story, because it was a really cool story about learning about this guy who had grown up and had essentially worshipped this guy that used to be a preacher in his hometown, and at one point during his childhood, the preacher loses his wife and kid and ends up having to move away because he's basically denounced his faith, and he just completely disregards everything that he once knew because of the fact that he lost the love of his life and his child. And then the story jumps like several years ahead, and you're basically following the main character throughout his life at different points in time where he meets up again and again with this old friend and kind of starts to learn about what this guy is up to. He's always had this fascination for electricity, and he essentially finds out what exactly this friend of his is trying to do with electricity. And I think that the message, after having been moved away from the story since January, has come in a little clearer, but at the time I felt like I didn't quite understand what the story was trying to tell me, which I think was playing more on the idea of playing God and the dangers of doing that. So I don't know, I felt like the message wasn't really that clear when I first read it, but now having been away from it for now about 4 months, it is a little clearer, and I think if I was to read it again, I could see that a little bit better, but didn't really come across that way the first time. Question 8 is the tiring yet satisfying finish of Spring Cleaning, a book series that was tiring yet satisfying to get through. I wouldn't say necessarily it was tiring, just long, and that was The Morganville Vampires by Rachel Cade. The Morganville Vampires series is like 15 books at least, and when I had first started reading it in high school, I was totally for, you know, reading the entire series. I read the whole series with my grandmother, but looking back, like, it's a long series. It is a very long series that deals with a lot of things that happen, but it was so satisfying to finally finish the series because this whole story had basically ended in a way that I was hoping it would. Everything turned out the way I wanted it to, and I wasn't ever really disappointed with how the storyline had gone within the entire series. It was just kind of long. And the final question, question 9, is looking forward to next spring. Tag 4 people you want to do this tag. You guys know I don't tag anybody in these videos because a lot of these videos have been around for a long time, but if you would like to do this tag yourself, please feel free to be tagged. I will leave all the questions in the description for you guys as always, and if you would like to share with me your answers, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Otherwise, if you guys did enjoy this video, please do give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit the button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock, and I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys!